Welcome back to the Matchbook Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joining me for the penultimate league phase week of the Champions League format, I think I've phrased that correctly, is Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. And before we get going, Adrian, we didn't get a chance to meet up over the weekend, but my streak continues at the Arsenal. We're 1 win and 7, which again, compared to Mikel Arteta's win rate of around 60% since being in charge, it's truly diabolical.
Yeah, what's happened to the luck of the Irish? That's what I want to know.
Long gone.
You're not bringing any with you. That is for sure. When you come to North London, but look, yeah, it was a real pity because Arsenal actually played very well in the game. It was an excellent match and a good watch, but not the result you and I wanted, unfortunately. So, but we go again.
We do onwards and upwards.
You won't go again, though.
No, I won't go again. Well, my mate made me promise if we don't win, not to go for the rest of the season. So I think unless something extraordinary happens, we'll keep that. And Mark made a few quid off that, purely with that being one of his reasons, back in Villa on the Asian handicap line. Mark, on my travels, I met a couple of people who enjoyed the podcast. Shout out to Cahill, I think his name was, in Dublin Airport, and really enjoys listening to the pod every week, to you two guys. So met a lot of the Matchbook crew. It wasn't a wasted weekend overall, but you made a few quid with the Villa.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like that, did it? For large periods of the game, Arsenal, as Adrian says, were very good. And yeah, I was kind of questioning my reasons to be with Villa in that game, but yeah, roared back quite nicely towards the end. Sorry, guys, but yeah, I mean, I would have been happy with just with the half stakes winner anyway. So yeah, thanks to Ollie Watkins for giving me the sort of icing on the cake there. So yeah, just a bit of a shame, really. On Saturday afternoon, with Liverpool scoring 2 late goals, I thought, here we go. Before those goals came in, we could have a title race again. But getting that victory and an Arsenal dropping points, it's not great for sort of Premier League neutrals.
Long way to go, but it did feel like a big day. All right, and shout out Adrian for your long shot winning Portsmouth. When I saw that in Gillette Soccer Saturday at the Emirates, going 2-1 to the Pompey against the Borough, and 2 goals from Matt Ritchie, wasn't it? Matt Ritchie's got the 2 goals. Yeah, and it, of course, it was the Matt Ritchie derby at 12:30 that morning. It was just a Matt Ritchie kind of day, so shout out, but well done. That was a 4.6 shot. Adrian smashing it with the long shots recently. And we're going to start with a massive game here, PSG versus Manchester City in our Champions League podcast. A reminder, as always, if you do take 2 seconds, hit that like button, subscribe or follow completely for free wherever you're watching or listening. And PSG are 264 favorites, Man City 278. The draw is 385. You won't get better pricing than that anywhere else. You can see the over rounds on screen. Both teams to score, yes, 156, and the Asian handicap line currently is a draw no bet market with PSG marginal favourites at 193, and the total for this game is 2.5, and overs is 162. So yeah, Mark, set up this game. I know a lot of people that don't really tune into this new format of the Champions League, and they might maybe the last couple of weeks they'll be shocked to see. I know Man City have had a dreadful season domestically, but they're under pressure in Europe as well.
They are, yeah. Both these two teams are actually quite fascinating coming into this penultimate round of Champions League group stage, league stage matches. Both sides are in a little bit of trouble. City on 8 points, 1 point inside the top 24. You need to be inside the top 24 to qualify for the next phase. PSG are on 7 points, so 1 point outside of the 24, and obviously outside of qualification place at the minute too. So given how much these two teams have spent across the last decade or so, quite shocking to see where they are in the league standings right now. City do host Club Brugge on Matchday 8, so they should be okay regardless of what happens this midweek, but you just never know, really. PSG have to go away to Stuttgart, though, and there's a lot of work there for them to do to avoid an embarrassing early exit. And if they did so, Luis Enrique's job is definitely in jeopardy. So I obviously have no sympathy whatsoever for either of these two clubs for the position that they're in. But from a PSG perspective, they have played a lot better than their results. The Arsenal defeat at Emirates Stadium was a very low-quality game featuring just one big chance. They were second best. They lost that game. They were battered by Bayern, it has to be said. Did deserve to lose that game. But they've generated 9.97 expected goals in their 4 other fixtures and had 89 shots. Somehow they were held at home to PSV, contrived to lose at home to Atletico, and they absolutely dominated that match too. So they're now in this predicament, really. And yeah, I would kind of be half tempted to oppose them completely and be with City completely as well. But at the same time with Man City, I'm just not completely bought into the idea that they're back, which is kind of what the the rhetoric has been surrounding them following that 6-0 win against Ipswich. They definitely have found their goal-scoring boots again, which is a big plus. The 12 goals in the last 3 Premier League games, and Pep said after the Ipswich game, there's smiles back on faces again. Players are enjoying being sort of finding their form again. Kevin De Bruyne has made a difference. 7.14 non-penalty expected goals in those 3 games. So they are running a little bit hot, but you definitely saw after that initial sort of 20-minute burst from Ipswich on Sunday that they are starting to engineer these open play opportunities much more fluently now, playing with confidence in forward areas, and they look threatening again, unbeaten in 6 across all comps. But yeah, I just don't completely trust them defensively yet. That weekend match against Ipswich was only their 3rd clean sheet and 15 away games across all comps. They've given up 11 big chances across the last 4 Premier League games. Brentford showcased just last midweek that they can still be rattled. They had 18 shots at home to Man City, 2.5 expected goals, 4 big chances. So if Brentford can do that, there's no reason why PSG can't do that. I mean, they're absolutely a better side than Brentford. I just think they're missing a little bit of belief in the big European matches that matter. The Parc des Princes used to be a bit of a fortress really in European football, and their form at home has deserted them now for a while in recent seasons. Just 2 wins in the last 7 home Champions League ties. Newcastle held them here. Dortmund won. Barcelona won. Atletico Madrid won. Girona and Real Sociedad, the only 2 victories they've had in that 7-game sequence. And even on Friday night away at Lens, they were missing Dembele and Marquinhos, who should be available here. They were pretty disjointed, quite unconvincing at times. Donnarumma, again, pretty unimpressive between the sticks. It's kind of continued his sloppy spell since Italy won the Euros. And that defence just doesn't fill me with enough confidence to sort of oppose Man City here. So I think the way to engineer a price here for me would be to back both teams to score and include Man City double chance, which comes in at 2.2. I think that's a nice price. If we exclude Bayern Munich, who are PSG's bogey team, they have scored in every home Champions League game bar 1 over the last 9 years, which is a pretty impressive record. And you combine that with City's wobbly defence. I think there will be goals considering what's at stake here, the magnitude of the match. But ultimately, I'll side with City to avoid defeat as well.
That's both teams to score and Man City double chance. A jump from both teams to score 155 to 2.2 if you include that City double chance. Adrian, Mark couldn't quite get there with City, but were you impressed enough, maybe particularly that Ipswich game yesterday, to back them here on the nose?
Yeah, I understand everything Mark was saying, and I agree with it all. Really, I think that's a pretty good selection. My pick is to go Man City on the nose. Was it 2.75? I think it's a pretty good price, given how hot they are. And yeah, I know that Ipswich aren't top class opposition, and I know that City, had a few wobbles against Brentford, but the key forwards are all in good nick, aren't they? Foden being back on song, I think, is massive for them, and as is Kevin De Bruyne being fit and impactful in games. And I do feel that if those 2 are firing, then City are a much different proposition. And look, PSG, yeah, they've underwhelmed, haven't they? I mean, 6 league phase goals from PSG. I know that they've created lots. I know they've been pretty wasteful, but 6 league goals is really poor for a club of their stature. And yeah, I think they do lack a bit of confidence against the very best teams. They did lose at Arsenal, they lost at Bayern, lost at home to Atletico. City are at that level, and I think that they'll lose to Manchester City, who will be really up for this game. We know the Champions League means a lot to Pep Guardiola. It feels like the last dance for a lot of these players. They'll probably be on the move in the summer. There's going to be a rebuild, and they will still feel that they can win the Champions League, but they do need to get a result here. 3 bad games on the spin, obviously losing at Sporting, at Juve, then drawing against Feyenoord when they were leading. They leading 3-0 and they drew 3-3. It was, it's crazy, really, what's happened to them. I think they'll just want to put that right with a professional away win here. They have won 5 of their last 8 on the road in the Champions League. I also think tactically, PSG are a very high possession team, aren't they? They want the ball under Luis Enrique. Obviously, City won the ball as well. So I'd be interested to see who monopolises it. But City probably will have less than usual. And I see that as a big positive, that they won't be as exposed to counter. Because let's be honest, most of the goals City concede are on the break, aren't they? It's being caught out when they're pushing players forward. I don't know if they'll do that here. I think that they might at times be the ones that counter on PSG, and that might suit them. I think City can score 2 against PSG, and if they do that, I think they'll win the game, given PSG's sort of lack of punch in attack this season, and they're pretty poor home record. So yeah, just on the basis of this upturn, City placing a high priority on the Champions League, and Foden, De Bruyne, and Haaland with his new contract, I just feel that they'll get the job done.
Okay. We'll lean towards Adrian. Bigger price there, City 276 on the nose. But if you're a bit cautious on City's upturn in form, take the double chance on both teams to score. That is Mark's selection. Second game here, it's Monaco versus Aston Villa. We'll take a look at the betting currently have on Matchbook on Monday morning. Monaco favourites here, 264 against the Villa, who are 284. The draw is 365. Both teams to score, yes, 165. The Asian handicap line will see effectively draw no bet with Villa underdogs in that market at 206, and the total is 2.5 overs, 179. So Aston Villa will take a lot of solace from their result at the Emirates, Adrian, and it's a real opportunity here with a win to consolidate that top 8 position in the Champions League. They're in a fantastic position. It'd be a shame for them if they do drop outside that top 8 after such a strong start to this campaign.
Yeah, they would be gutted, wouldn't they? And look, if they can go to Monaco and win, they deserve to go to qualify, don't they? Because it's an awkward game. This is a hard one, I think, for me to call a winner on. They both need the points. They both had good campaigns, probably better campaigns than expected, even though Monaco have tailed off a little bit in recent games. Yeah, it's a huge one for Villa. I've got to be honest, and this isn't sour grapes, but they didn't really impress me at Emirates Stadium. I thought that Arsenal absolutely dominated them for most of the game. I thought the fullbacks were really vulnerable. Obviously, it got better when Martson got taken off and Digne came on. I didn't think Matty Cash was very good at right back. And when I look at Monaco, they've got some really good attacking midfielders, good wingers. They've got Golovin probably at 10, but they've got Seguir, Akliou should probably be the 2 wide players. And I think they can cause Aston Villa problems here in the game. So I think Monaco can score for sure. But I wouldn't back them to keep a clean sheet, because I remember watching them at Arsenal in that 3-0 loss. Pretty poor, really, at the back. Great on. I see Monaco as really good on the ball inside the opposition half, but inside their own half, I see them as being a bit vulnerable, really. And Singo is probably the best centre half. He's out, I believe, which means it's Thilo Kehrer and Mohamed Salisu at the back. Premier League fans will know about them from West Ham and Southampton. It's not great. It's not top drawer, is it? And I think that Ollie Watkins or Duran, and with Rodgers joining in, can hurt Monaco. So I like both teams to score. We can't get to that because that's a short price. But if you combine it with over 2.5 goals, then it's backable at 1.8. This bet has landed. Both teams are scoring over 2.5 in all 3 Monaco home games in the Champions League. It's landed in 7 of 10 home games in all comps for Monaco. And if you look at the Villa side, they scored 3 in Leipzig, 3 in Switzerland against Young Boys, did lose to Bruges in between, but both teams to score for Villa has landed in 7 of their last 10. Villa on the road this season in all comps have only kept 2 clean sheets. They've let in goals in 13 of 15. They've scored in 11 of 15 on the road. And then if you're looking at the over 2.5s, 12 of Villa's 15 away games this season in all competitions have gone over 2.5 goals. So I actually see this as a game where both teams are better at scoring than keeping things tight. So both teams to score and over 2.5. Don't know who's going to win, but I like it at 1.88.
Okay, goals for Adrian, Mark. The stats tend to back it up from what Adrian said there, and you're in broad agreement with that both teams to score angle. And of course, Yuri Tielemans not only got the goal against Arsenal, but two minutes later nearly got a quick fire double. And you think him getting a shot here is 2.25 combined with the both teams to score?
Yeah, really like both teams to score for all the reasons Adrian's outlined already. I do expect this to be quite an exciting, quite an open, entertaining game. I did think Villa would be slightly shorter when I did my notes. They're about 292, so they've already come into 284. Maybe that might shorten again before kickoff. They've won 4 of their 6 Champions League games, and if they are going to keep that momentum going into the top 8, they're just 1 point inside the top 8. They'll should really be kind of trying to win this game. I know it's Celtic at home on their last match day, but 4 points from those fixtures should be enough to secure it. Obviously left it late against Leipzig on match day 5, was it? After a draw against Juve, which they could have won, a defeat at Club Brugge previously. But they've been tracking quite nicely domestically. That draw against Arsenal means they've only lost twice in 11 recently. They've scored in 10 of those. I know their away form has been largely dubious for a while, really, but Monaco aren't in a fantastic place themselves. Started the season superbly and looked like the only real challengers to PSG domestically, but they've really fallen away in the winter. Across all competitions, just 2 wins in the last 11, one of which was against a lower division team in the Coupe de France. They lost at rock bottom Montpellier on Friday night, and their Champions League form, again, I think has been questionable. 3 wins from opening 4, beating Barcelona in that sample, but stuffed up by Arsenal, conceded 3 goals and a home defeat to Benfica. The Barca win actually comes with an asterisk as well, because there was a very early red card to Barca in that game. Their key forward, Florian Balogun, is out for another few weeks, even months, really. Another forward is out. Singo's obviously doubtful. Zakaria is doubtful as well. So a couple of key players there who could be missing. But, Adrian touched on the defence. And that Friday night game against Montpellier was quite alarming, actually. They created plenty in forward areas, as they tend to do, really. But they gave up 2.4 expected goals, 4 big chances as well. PSG scored 4 goals here in their last home Liga match. That's Monaco, that is. Had 17 attempts at goal as well. Brest scored twice here back in November too, another Champions League side. So there's no real fear factor, I think, for Aston Villa to get forward and score goals. The issue for them, obviously, is defence, where there's just 3 clean sheets in the Premier League all season. Just one of those came away. That was at Everton, who are pretty powder puff up until this weekend. They've conceded twice or more in 7 of those 11 away games as well. So, whilst there could be an argument for them to be a bit pragmatic considering their league position, I think there's goals in this game for them if they attack it. So you look at Monaco, Adi Hütter, the head coach, anyone who remembers his Eintracht Frankfurt side from a few seasons back knows it just tends to be goals and open, expansive matches. And Monaco's domestic games are averaging 3.12 expected goals. Their last 8 have gone to 3.86 expected goals. 4 of their 6 Champions League games have seen both teams score. Expecting both sides to score. And as you say, combining with Tielemans to have a shot, because since McGinn has been out injured, Tielemans has been pushed further forward, sitting in the 2 players sort of behind the striker. And he's been a massive threat. 10 shots in his 5 games, scored, as you say, at the weekend. Could have had another. He's been given license to roam. So quite keen to get him on side just to have a shot. And it boosts that price on BTTS from sort of 165-ish to, 2.25, which is really quite nice. So you're effectively getting an Aston Villa attacking midfielder just to have a shot alongside it and getting a massive boost. So, 225 for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to lock that in. And again, if you just want to support goals, you can go with Agents 1 of both teams scoring over 2.5 goals. But both guys thinking this will be a fun and exciting game. Now let's move on to Atletico versus Leverkusen. 2 really good sides here, I have to say. Let's take a look at the betting we have on matchbet.com. Atletico Madrid 2.6, Leverkusen 3.1. Underdogs. The draw is the further underdog in that market at 335. Both teams to score. Yes is favourite at 186. The Asian handicap line is drawn about once again. 3 close matches so far, but Atletico favourites at 182, and 2.5 is the total. 183 for the unders. Adrian, might start with you, because I know Atletico were disappointing at the weekend, but in some ways you could be looking at the champions of Spain and champions of Germany for the successive seasons, Leverkusen, that is, by the end of the season. Both these teams doing very well domestically and very well in the Champions League.
Yeah, they've got great managers, haven't they? Simeone and Xabi Alonso. They're challenging the establishment, aren't they? Leverkusen obviously putting pressure on Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. They're the champions. And Atletico, they've lost top spot with that shock loss to Leganes. But they're putting pressure on Real Madrid and Barcelona. So, they're having great seasons. I mean, long winning streaks. But I think Leverkusen have won 12 in a row. Which is just phenomenal, really, because they didn't start this season great. They won, of course, at Bayern in the Cup, so there's a little bit of an asterisk there. But they won at Dortmund as well recently, did Leverkusen, and Atletico had been on a storming run, hadn't they? So, this has got the makings of a top-quality match. Leverkusen kind of don't need it quite as much. I mean, a win would probably guarantee them top 8, but they don't need it. If Atletico want to finish in the top 8, which I'm sure they do, and they will feel they've got to win this game. So yeah, what sort of game will it be? That's the big question. I was looking through the stats, and I mean, Simeone is known as being pragmatic, but in the Champions League, they've had a lot of exciting matches. 9 of their last 10 home games in the Champions League, Atletico have seen over 2.5 goals, which I think is really unusual. Both teams to score has landed in the last 5. And 5 of those 10 have gone over 3.5, which, does surprise me. Leverkusen are attack-minded. We know that. They can always score goals. Wirtz is in good form, isn't he? And Schick as well. So they'll fancy this. But it's tough, isn't it? Going to Wanda Metropolitano is not easy. And yeah, we saw, didn't we, with Leverkusen, that they actually showed the other side, how they can keep teams at bay. The home game against Inter, I thought, was great. They beat them 1-0. It was a late goal. I think limited Inter to just 6 shots. They showed that they can be strong defensively, Leverkusen, if they put their mind to it. So I'm a little bit torn. I find this it's a tough game. I'm going to go with under 3.5 goals because of the 2 coaches. I think it could be a tactical affair. I think they'll look to nullify each other's strengths. I don't see it developing into a shootout. And I'm going to fancy Atletico on the double chance to pair with it. Leverkusen getting smashed at Anfield does sort of linger in my mind. Away to the very best teams. How good are they? They didn't show the best selves that night, that's for sure. And you do wonder, will Atletico cause their defence a few issues here? And I think that Simeone will just make sure that his team don't lose the game. I think he's very canny. So for me, Atletico double chance and under 3.5 goals. A lot of the stats point towards overs, but I see it being more cautious. I see a 1-1 or a 2-1 either way if there are goals in the game. So let's see it unfold.
Atletico double chance under 3.5 goals, 192. And yeah, Mark, Atletico this season 10 goals conceded in those 6 Champions League games, but only 13 in the 20 La Liga games. So it's just a case of what Atletico, they have been solid throughout domestically, and can they bring that into a big game like this at home to Bayer Leverkusen?
Yeah, they possibly can. I'm looking forward to this just because the sort of stylistic differences between the 2 teams, almost like a sort of Beauty and the Beast type contest, really. And there is a fair amount riding on it if you do think both these 2 teams want to secure a top 8 finish. Leverkusen already there, Atleti just outside it, I think by 1 point. I think the match odds are very interesting actually, because Atletico trading around 2.6. If you thought these 2 teams were rated equal by the market, they'd be 225, 230-ish, which shows a lot of respect there for Leverkusen. La Liga is traditionally one of Europe's strongest in terms of European competition. Atletico are second, 2 points off top. We're on a 15-game winning streak before losing at Leganés on Saturday. The only goal they conceded was from a corner. Griezmann missed a penalty in stoppage time. They had 19 shots, 5 big chances created, hit the woodwork twice. Definitely didn't deserve to lose that match, but they've been largely very good in that 16-game spell. They won at Barca before Christmas, but the flip side is variance kind of went in their favour on that day because they heavily lost the shot count and the XG count, but managed to pull through and win the game. And Simeone piled on the praise for his players and sort of said, had all the old hallmarks of an Atletico side, but the character and the suffering they went through. So they've shown resolve, a bit of bite as well across these matches too. But this will be a test. As Adrian says, Leverkusen took a while to get going, perhaps understandable after last season, but it's now 11 wins, I think, or 12 wins across all comps, 8 on the spin in the Bundesliga. In the Champions League, they turned over Inter last time out. That was a 4th clean sheet in 6 Champions League games. And incredibly, that's just 3 defeats across all competitions since May 2023 for Leverkusen. So that's where the respect comes from. But it's the nature, I think, of those performances more recently with, as Adrian says, the sort of deadly duo of Wirtz and Patrick Schick, who are forming a really formidable partnership. Leverkusen scored 3 goals against Gladbach at the weekend. Wirtz was involved in every goal, scored twice, and assisted Schick for the 3rd. Schick's now got 12 goals in his last 8 Bundesliga games. Wirtz has got 17 goal involvements in the Bundesliga alone this season. He's also one of the leading scorers in the Champions League. So I think with that sort of firepower and that sort of ability in the final third, I would want Leverkusen to score onside here, even against this Atleti defence. Atleti have kept just 3 clean sheets in 18 Champions League games coming into this, against Sparta Prague, Celtic and Lazio. 7 of the last 9 at home in this competition have seen both sides score, as have 4 of the last 7 at home in the La Liga. And Leverkusen have failed to score just once away from home across all competitions since May 2023. And that was that trip to Anfield that Adrian referenced to. So I think obviously if Leverkusen score, they're in a fantastic position. It piles the pressure on Atletico if they do want to try and finish in the top 8 as well. So yeah, I think it perhaps might be a sneakily good one, but it's not a massively strong pick for me. But I'll back both teams to score and just partner it alongside under 4.5 goals. The old favourite there for a 2.15 shot.
Yeah, that rises from 186. We'll lean with Adrian there, a bit more confident on his Atletico double chance and under 3.5 goals. So a bit more cagier, perhaps 192. Let's move on to the final game we're covering in the main slot. Plenty more to come with any other bets, long shots and best bets. But Feyenoord host Bayern as 7.8 underdogs. Bayern are 142. The draw is 5.5. Both teams to score, yes, 167. The Asian handicap line will see Feyenoord get a 1.25 goal head start at 2.04. And the total for this one stands at 3.5. Unders favourite at 183. So Mark, we'll go to you here. Just bit of bigger picture stuff as you touched on the top 8 in the last game. Bayern sit 10th at 1 point off that top 8. I think people, if they're not really sure how big it is, I would suggest it probably is big. We've seen it with Gaelic football over here. We had a similar system, a bye week, and we saw results where the teams that got that bye week were rested, were stronger. In the NFL, they have a bye week, the same thing. It should carry over to football, you would think, which means this top 8 is probably a little bit more important than people think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is, and it should be, but it's very difficult to know how these teams and clubs are approaching it. Are they seeing it as a potential kind of couple of weeks off, in midweeks off, because they should do? It's obviously going to aid them longer down the line, but I've also kind of looked at some big clubs throughout the competition so far and thought there's been a lack of urgency or a lack of, if it was a 6-game sort of round robin group stage, I think at times there has been a bit more urgency about the teams and the team selections. So we'll have to wait and see. This is the first time we've had this competition. I'm still not fully bought into it. But, the next couple of weeks could be fascinating, particularly next week. But we'll see how this week goes. This one should be fun. Both sides, as you say, outside the top 8 by 3 and 1 points respectively. Feyenoord not guaranteed a top 24 position, actually. They got Lille last up, so that's a tricky one. Bayern do host Slovan Bratislava, so they will definitely feel that they can achieve that top 8 position with these 2 fixtures to finish. But both teams do tend to take a very front foot approach, and I'm expecting goals, because goals have been a very much a theme of Feyenoord's campaign so far this season. All 6 games in the Champions League have gone over 3.5 goals, let alone 2.5. 3 went over 4.5, and 2 of those 6 went over 5.5. Both sides have scored in 5 of 6. Everyone remembers the remarkable comeback at the Etihad on Matchday 5. So they've actually scored twice more in 4 of those 6, but they've also conceded 2 or more in 5 of 6. And it's that defensive record that just causes me a lot of concern coming into this game, because go way back to Matchday 1, I watched them get absolutely slaughtered at home to Leverkusen 4-0 at De Kuip. They created plenty of sort of moments of potential for themselves in the final third, and they were pretty profligate themselves, but they coughed up so many opportunities. And I think that was a very familiar theme against Man City for the most part of that match too, until that sort of dramatic fight back. And I think when you're conceding 5 goals to Sparta Prague and Salzburg at home, that's a concern. For whatever reason, they've just been very, very leaky at De Kuip this season. Just 2 home clean sheets across the whole season. They've conceded multiple goals in 7 of 12 at home, including 3 on the spin. And interestingly, whenever they face sort of tougher opponents domestically and in Europe, they concede 2 goals at home. Salzburg, Leverkusen, Sparta all did it. RZ, Ajax, Utrecht have done it in the Eredivisie. They also shipped 3 away at PSV recently. It's 3 clean sheets overall in the Eredivisie in 19 matches too. So if there's a side you can normally guarantee goals from, it's Bayern. And I know they were blanked at Aston Villa earlier in the campaign, but did more than enough to score in that game. Scored 5 against Shakhtar last time out in this competition. They've got 8 in the last 2 Bundesliga games. So happy to partner Bayern to win here with Harry Kane to score at what is it, 2.15, which I think is a lovely price. Don't really need to justify Harry Kane, do we? But 66 goals and 68 appearances for Bayern across all comps. He's got 21 and 23 this season. He scored in 2 of his 3 games since the winter break as well. Obviously on penalties. And if you expect Bayern to score a minimum of 2 goals, possibly more, Kane should be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and of course, so the Bayern sit 4 points clear of Leverkusen. The Champions League final is going to be in Munich this year, so plenty for Harry Kane to play for in his second season at Bayern. Adrian, same question to you on the top 8 and how important it is, because you get the whole of February off as a team from Champions League football, which is crazy to me, but so it just gives you such breathing space. See how the other teams, you get 2 extra games of tape. In a dressing room, you obviously want that break, do you, considering the relentless nature of the football calendar this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking in Premier League terms, there's no winter break this year, which I thought was a real shame.
Yeah.
Because it helped Arsenal massively last season when they were on their knees and come back from Dubai a completely different side. And look, there's just been no time for anyone to do that this time around. It's been ridiculous, really. We all know December's crazy, but January's been just as busy, hasn't it? Maybe even more so. So I think if you can avoid a busy Feb, it's got to be it's got to be a boost to allow you to recharge your batteries, hasn't it? I think it's really important for clubs and for players. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. And so I expect teams to be trying. I do. I think there will be managers will be pushing hard to get top 8, which I think sets up really nicely for this match week and obviously the final one. But this is the big week for me, where you can put the destiny in your own hands ahead of the final match week. There's so many variables on that last day. You don't want to be one of those that's relying on 2-3 results going your way, do you? So this is a huge week. And for that reason, I concur with Mark. I think Bayern Munich will be really, really focused on this game. Obviously, it's Germany, but via the Netherlands as well. There's a bit of rivalry, bit of beef there. Feyenoord are pretty poor at the back. 15 conceded. It's the worst of all the teams currently in the top 24, alongside Dinamo Zagreb. And I just don't think Feyenoord are good enough at the back to handle Bayern Munich. It's not just Kane. I looked at the players that were behind Kane the other day in their last game. Sané, Elise, who was brilliant, and Kingsley Coman. And then on the bench, Serge Gnabry, Jamal Musiala and Müller. They've just got firepower coming out of their ears, haven't they? Bayern Munich. And I think I feel like this is one, I almost put this as my best bet. But I wanted to choose something different. But I do think Bayern Munich and over 2.5 goals is a good shout here. It's 1.86. They'll be fully focused, and I expect them to probably cover this themselves with 3 goals. They've had they're in good form. Bayern, 5 straight wins. They've scored at least 3 goals in 5 of their last 8 matches in all competitions. And yeah, Feyenoord aren't the best at the back. So yeah, I think then we'll just see the class difference here between the top sides in Germany and the top sides in the Netherlands. I think Bayern will I think they could romp home, actually. But yeah, Bayern and over 2.5 for me.
Okay, if close to Adrian's best bet, Mark, I'm going to have to go with him, if that's okay. Bayern and over 2.5 goals, 186.
I like the Kane angle. I mean,
yeah, I did as well.
Shot.
Yeah. For those who want to play that 2-1-5, of course. I'm on.
Do the 3.
Do the 3. Yeah,
getting a little hacker.
It's well, the way Adrian's speaking there, Mark, it screams any other away win. If you can get something like a 2-1, maybe on that, maybe a little bit bigger too. So check that out. That you can only do them on exchanges, so that's in the correct score, basically backing Bayern to score 4 goals or more in any sort of victory. Any other bets, Mark? You look at the table, and Milan have had a terrible Champions League campaign, almost certain not to get top 24, but you give them a strong chance here getting someone against Dortmund, who are complete opposite. Again, we spoke about how that top 8 is so important, and they're right on the cusp of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been burnt by Bologna I don't know how many times on this Champions League podcast this season. Normally would be happy enough avoiding them from here with very little to play for. But I do think there is something on the line here for Bologna, and that's pride. But this is more about opposing Dortmund on the road than it is the basis of being pro-Bologna being able to back Bologna with a half-goal start at 183 against this Dortmund team. Dortmund at 218, it's just a massive turn-off. They're in turmoil at the minute, and Bologna have only won 2 points in the group stage. They're effectively out, although not mathematically. But this is their last home match in the tournament. They will not want to sign off with a whimper. It's obviously a very big occasion for them to be qualifying and competing at this level. And I do think they've been pretty unlucky so far in the competition. They've got an expected points total of 5.5. They've had quite a tough schedule, but they were much the better team, but held at home to Shakhtar on Matchday 1. Gave Liverpool plenty to ponder on Matchday 2. We're in a tight game with Villa as well for a good hour or so on Matchday 3. Failed to fire against Monaco and Lille. That's fair enough, but scrapped a really good point at Sporting last time out. So they've now lost once in the last 10. They held Inter away a fortnight ago. And it just kind of highlights their potential. Perhaps their situation has kind of moved the market in Dortmund's favour here. But, as I say, it's the last home game of the competition. I do expect a strong effort from Bologna. I don't think they're just going to down tools and move on. And Dortmund have just been giving in so many sort of disaster classes in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. It's difficult to be positive about them. Their Champions League performances do look much, much better on paper. When domestically it's 1 win in 8 across all comps, 3 straight defeats since the winter break, conceding 9 goals as well. Nuri Sahin is really on the brink, but they've been absolutely atrocious defensively, and their away record since mid-September is 7 defeats, 2 wins and 2 draws. They've conceded twice more in 7 of those 11, just 1 clean sheet in that same sample. I've seen 3 games since the winter break. They were destroyed against Leverkusen, admittedly with a sort of half-baked defence. Absolutely embarrassed at Kiel. They were 4-0 down at one particular point in that game, which is embarrassing is an understatement. And then largely battered at Frankfurt on Friday night as well. So no clean sheet in 8, home or away. They're bottom half in the Bundesliga. They're absolutely opposable for me here. As I say, the Champions League performances have looked better, or the results do look better on paper, but they've been massively overperforming in the final third if you look at their XG output compared to their goals scored. So I'm happy to oppose them here and support Bologna with a half-goal start at 183.
Okay, Mark watches a lot of Bundesliga action, so I would follow that in Bologna. Effectively double chance, but back it on the Asian handicap market with Matchbook, which is plus half a goal, and you'll get the best price out there on the odds checker grid at 1.8. Adrian, up the Celtic, and both teams score yes against Young Boys. Have been flying so far this season, I guess overall domestically and in Europe this season.
Yeah, I fancy this. Yeah, because this is a huge night, isn't it, for Celtic? Brilliant opportunity to sort of seal their passage in the top 24. There were some good nights already. Obviously, the 5-1 Bratislava, 3-1 Leipzig. It was a bit tougher against Club Brugge, but still didn't get beat in that game. I think the belief will be really, really strong. And look, Young Boys are out. They're done. They've lost all 6. They can put out the youth team if they want. They won't, I'm sure, but they could. And look, their first team conceded 22 in 6 Champions League games. Battered 5 for Barcelona, 5-1 Stuttgart, 2-1 Shakhtar on the road. Villa tonked them 3-0 at home as well, didn't they? So, yeah, you can't fancy Young Boys here at all. I think Celtic will win the game. It's just where's both teams to score coming from? Well, it boosts the price first and foremost to 2.66, which I think is fantastic. It looks even better when you realise that Celtic haven't kept a clean sheet in 11 home games in the Champions League. Even up against some fairly modest opposition, they've let in goals, Celtic. And Young Boys have scored goals, throughout this competition. They don't always blank. Celtic are guaranteed it, really. I mean, the last time Celtic blanked at home in any match was December 2023. It's 31 games. And in that run, by the way, they've only scored 1 goal 4 times of 31. So, they're scoring multiple goals over and over and over again, domestically and in Europe. So, yeah, I expect Celtic to get at least 2, probably more. But I do think the Young Boys can contribute when you look at Celtic's record in Europe. And, there might be 1 or 2 nerves there as well. It could get a bit edgy at one point if Young Boys nick a goal. So, yeah, I can just picture it, sort of a 2-1, 3-1 win for Celtic. And that'd be another great night for them.
Okay, yeah, massive game as we alluded to there to secure top 24. Celtic to win and both teams to score 2-6-6 at home to Young Boys. Long shots time. And Mark, how do you compete with Adrian over the last few weeks? But you've had the long shots there. Bournemouth on the Asian handicap line, fantastic shout. But they were there, 5.0-ish bigger for the long shots, but you didn't take the leap. What is your long shot for the Champions League?
Yeah, well, Adrian's been hammering them home. I've had Bournemouth as a hard luck story and Gabriel with a hard luck story in the last fortnight. So hopefully we'll get something this midweek. I'm sort of replicating what I'm doing in the Monaco versus Aston Villa game, but taking it a step further, which is both teams to score and Youri Tielemans to have 2 shots or more, which comes in at 4.5. Both of us are very keen on goals in that game for obvious reasons. But in terms of Tielemans, I left a little bit out of that justification and reasoning in the main part, just for this element, because as I said, he's been moved further forward since John McGinn's injury. He's been getting into much more good opportunity, good moments, good positions on the field, and he's actually had this 2 shots or more in 4 of those 5 matches since he's been pushed further forward. So just to have 2 shots or more is a great angle in this game, I think, for Youri Tielemans. But to combine it with both teams to score, we get a 4.5 shot here. So he's basically being priced up shots-wise as if he's that holding midfielder, which he's played for most of the season, but that's not been the case recently. 10 shots in 5 games. And yeah, he can also be a threat from set pieces at times too. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, and before we move on from that, Mark, would you tend to, when you have a bet, like say Youri Tielemans 1 shot, would you play the alt lines often, rarely, or is it just now and again something like this when there is a legitimate case for playing alternative lines like this?
Yeah, absolutely. You ladder them up really. Sort of Tielemans 1 shot won't be a massive price in this game, but 2 or more, you sort of take 2 or 3. You'll be getting some really nice prices. So I think there's about sort of 4 or 3.5, etc., on offer for sort of Tielemans to have 2 shots or more. So that's a very nice way in, and just ladder them up to sort of 3 or 4 if you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, and you can do all them on the Matchbook Bet Builder. Adrian, take it away. What's the shock of the round in this week's Champions League?
I'm going to go for Red Star Belgrade. I don't like saying the other name. Serena's Zvezda. Red Star Belgrade. To beat PSV, it's 4.4. Look, Red Star Belgrade have lost 5 of their 6 games. So the one they did win was at home against Stuttgart, where they smashed them 5-1. And to stay in Europe, they need a win here. They need to go for it. And domestically, I know that's not a great gauge, but domestically, they are phenomenal. 58 points from a possible 60 in their domestic league. They're topped by 17 points. And, those games they have lost in Europe have been against good teams, AC Milan, Benfica, Inter, Monaco, and Barcelona. And they only lost narrowly in the San Siro. So I feel like they're a decent team that are better than what their league position suggests. And PSV just aren't in good form. They lost 3-1 at Zwolle at the weekend. And they've actually lost their last 3 matches away from home, PSV, against Brest in the Champions League, and then in the Eredivisie against Heerenveen, and then Zwolle. And if you look at their last 4 on the road in Europe or in the Champions League, PSV, it's lost 3, drawn 1. So there's no real form to speak of away from the Netherlands. They're not in great form as well. And they've only kept 1 clean sheet, PSV, in their last 10 in the Champions League. So, if they concede again here, which I think is very possible, then they're up against it to win the game. I mean, there's lots to like about PSV. Bakayoko's a good player, De Jong, and Malik Tillman's having a good season for them. But I think they could be vulnerable here against the Red Star Belgrade. They might just come out swinging on home turf. I'm not saying they're going to win 5-1 like they did against Stuttgart, but they can definitely win this game. So 4.4 is a price that appeals.
Okay, we'll lock that in to our long shots and best bet time. And Mark, we've talked about this podcast throughout the season. When you combine your match result with both teams to score no, which is the old win to nil market, you're getting an inflated price because obviously that bet can be done in 1 second. So when is it a good time to tackle? Obviously, this Atlanta and both teams to score no is your pick this week. But what makes you select a thing like this? Because it's a massive jump in price up to 208.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot really, I think, which will suggest that the leap is worth taking. About 122-ish for Atalanta to win the game, but 208 if you include both teams to score no. So Atalanta's club record winning streak was ended before Christmas or just after Christmas, but they're winless in 5 now actually. But that includes the Super Cup. It also includes tough games against Juventus and Napoli at home in their last 2 matches where they picked up just 1 point, and they'll be really frustrated by those results because they were good enough to get possibly more out of both. Had 32 shots across both fixtures. But yeah, they're 2 points off the top 8 in the Champions League now, and they end away at Barcelona. So this is a really key game for them. They've not had it easy at all in this campaign. Arsenal and Real Madrid have already been to Bergamo. They put in decent efforts in both of those games. The Celtic game ended here goalless. They did more than enough to win that match sort of twice over. So 2 clean sheets from 3 at home in the Champions League. They've also kept Shakhtar and Stuttgart quiet away from home in this competition. So yeah, it's a big increase on the match odds. But yeah, if we take Real Madrid out of the equation, who are obviously well renowned for their attacking ability, none of their Champions League opponents have managed to hit an XG total of 1 or more. The other totals 0.78, 0.29, 0.26, 0.97, 0.81. They've only allowed 2 shots on target maximum in all but one of those, and allowed 18 shots in the box across those 5 fixtures as well, which is pretty tremendous, really. So defensively, they've shown they can really turn it up a notch in the Champions League. But then you look at their opposition, Sturm Graz, 5 defeats from 6 so far. They are as good as out already. They failed to score in half of those games, averaged 0.72 expected goals. No side in the competition has had fewer shots in the box, just 4.67 per game. And they've generated just 5 big chances across their 6 games, which is the second worst tally. They're also second bottom of the whole competition on expected points. So statistically, that's pretty dreadful stuff. And I think it's made even worse by the fact that their opposition have been Brest, Club Brugge, Sporting, Dortmund, Girona, and Lille. So that's kind of a Europa League schedule, if you look at it. They've avoided all the big guns, and they've still been turning in sort of disastrously poor attacking numbers. And interestingly, too, they lost their star striker, Arsenal heritage, actually. A young boy came through the academy there, I think. Mika Bireth. He moved to Monaco this month. They also lost their fullback to the Zwei Bundesliga this month too, and they're on a domestic winter break too. So they haven't played a competitive game since mid-December. They have played 4 friendlies this calendar year in preparation for this match, but they've scored just once in the last 3 games as well. So I think they're up against it here, and therefore I think that increase on Atalanta just to win by including BTS no is well worth taking it.
Yeah, that was comprehensive, I would say, from start to finish. Atalanta both teams score no, 208 from a jump from 1-2-2 ish. Seems quite big there. And Atalanta again going for top 8, need the win here. Their final game is away to Barcelona, who might play a weakened team if they're already qualified. Lot to think when we're thinking of this top 8 race. That's the 3rd team in Serie A, Adrian. The 2nd place team is Inter, gone well this season, and you're going to do the same bet with them.
Yeah, I could almost just blind back into whoever they're playing against to nil, because that's what they do. Obviously, they'd kept 5 clean sheets in their first 5 matches in the competition. That was ruined with a 90th minute winner by Leverkusen in their last game. So that was a shame for them. But look, they've let in 1 goal in the competition so far. Very, very solid. And I think they'll just want to seal their qualification with a minimum of fuss here. And a win should be enough for them. They've won 0 against Lazio, Cagliari, and Venezia in their last 3 away games domestically. So yeah, this is something they're used to doing against good, strong teams in Italian football. They've actually won 0 in 7 of their last 8 away games, full stop, which means that since the start of October, Inter Milan have let in 1 away goal, which is just mad, really. And that was that one at Leverkusen, which they're just a minute or 2 away from keeping a clean sheet there as well. And at Sparta Prague are struggling. They were thrashed 0 by City and by Atletico in the competition so far. They're not a bad side. They're not shot shy, but there's levels, aren't there? And I think that Inter Milan are a significantly stronger team, and I think that they will go to Prague and get the job done in a really business-like manner. And much like Mark, the price leaps. The price on offer here for Inter to win to nil is 2.4.
Okay, massive boost in price there. So there are two best bets, both at backing an Italian team and both teams to score now in the Champions League this week. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. If you are watching on the live stream currently, I think we have around 60 people there. Hello, thanks for joining us live. Take 2 seconds if you can and hit that like button. It'd be much appreciated. And get any comments or questions you might have for Mark and Adrian to us, and we'll do our best to give it to them on Thursday or beyond, because we will be back on Thursday to preview another weekend's Premier League before the final round of the Champions League, where all games will be next Wednesday. So looking forward to that finish there. But my thanks to both the guys. We'll chat to you all going well on Thursday. Bye-bye.